Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to anyone who might be watching this channel. Eric Percival for Scuffed Gaming here on YouTube, or as I'm known otherwise on the internet. For those of you who may be new to my channel, I used to do videos like this for my own personal clan, Chilean, the Mist, CITM, circa Titanfall, and before FPS games. Always used to play all of them, still do to this day. So this video is going to serve a little bit more as a more or less like a housekeeping video for myself and my group, as opposed to the usual statistical breakdowns or class breakdowns that I used to do for this channel. CITM, for those of you who do not know, was my clan or my group. It now exists more in an allegorical and axiomatic space than it used to from yesteryear. It is the CITM that we used to know more or less is finished. There's no other way to go about it. It is a different look, if it is in fact a look at all at this point in time. Nevertheless, the memories that I made as part of the clan are some of my most fond and cherished memories, and always will exist in my mind as not only part of what shaped my group of friends today, but shaped the person who I am today as well. So from Modern Warfare 2 Search and Destroy lobbies to Ghosts, Clan Wars, all the way to Infinite Warfare Star Wars spoilers, and my apologies to anyone who may have accidentally spoiled some of the events of the first three movies to you, of episode 7, 8, 9. My sincerest apologies, but I look back on these memories very fondly. And so let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of the video. As always, I'm referring to my notes to make sure I don't get off track. With that being said, of course, there have been lots of changes during the last few years, and I feel compelled to do this mental house cleaning, which is what this document is intended for. I don't have to explain to everybody what happened in 2020. COVID-19 pushed everybody into this world of pre, mid, and post-pandemic world of increased reliance on technology, and everyone sort of like moving back into distance everything. With an undercurrent of polarized politicking and distrust of people, sometimes even of people you may call your friends and family. Frankly, 2020 was a horrible year. People may try to look on the bright side. They may try to use it as a way to introspect and think to themselves, I could use it as a way to self-improve or gain a new skill or something like that. But at the end of the day, the truth is that people had to endure a lot of introspection, whether they wanted to or not, during the course of quarantining and isolation. We endured a viral outbreak amidst increased politicization of everything, including wanting to survive. And I always try to tell people on both sides of the aisle, whether they were right or left leaning or centric, whatever they might have been, that it was only ever my will or my wish to see that they make it to the next day, that they stay safe, just because I want to keep the people around me safe and I want to see them continue to survive. You know, some of us got sick, some of us didn't get sick, some of us got hospitalized, but at the end of the day, we ended up seeing tomorrow, and we continue to see tomorrow as we continue, and I'm very grateful for that. But nevertheless, during these years, we were pushed into a world of Zoom meetings, Google Meets, Discord chats, and of course, for those of you who know me, online gaming. It shouldn't come as a surprise that that's where I retreated when this pandemic started, and how it ties to my old and forgotten CITM addresses. Now, even before all of this happened, a rather natural thing was occurring with our group. You see, we were always a motley crew of above average gamers, I would say. You know, we had different groups of friends, play styles coming from different generations even, but we all would come together to sort of pub stomp the normal crews. We had semi-daily game lobbies devoted to Xbox Live, jumping into impromptu lobbies and checking people's online status in the hopes that we would see those coveted words in a party. And I certainly did, and we did. Just seeing those words would fill me with joy, because it meant that I could spend the rest of the evening playing with not only folks that I really loved playing with, but some highly skilled players as well, and just go through lobbies and stomp anyone who would dare stand in our way. But the matter of fact is that as early as 2013 to 2014, we knew that for some of our friends, working with the clan or the group would have to take a backseat to other priorities in people's lives. They wanted to work towards the long-term goals they wanted to achieve, to become the people that they were always destined to become. Yes, adjust to a more responsible lifestyle. And after all, every single one of us had to go through high school, college, establish a career, establish new relationships, move into new homes, and some of us decided that gaming, unsurprisingly, needed to take a back seat. Go figure. But that perhaps more to the point. People started to move into game lobbies that were more catered towards their personal group of friends. Yes, each of us comes from a world of wanting to game with the friends from our school, which is our zeitgeist. It's our socialization. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, we bend and we bargain with one another to try to stay on the same page game-wise, on the same console, to try to tell each other which one's the next console to buy, what's the next big game title to play together as a group. And we train and we try to improve in those games alongside one another. Now, there was emerging one small issue, which is that our group was pretty big. You know, it was to the point where we couldn't exactly stay in one six stack in a lobby because we had 8, 9 players online at a time. And so there was a brief stint where maybe people did come on quite often. We could fill out the whole lobby, but eventually they had to splinter off into groups of their own and groups that made the most sense. Seasonal competitive testing and ranking was becoming more difficult, and even though we tried to keep things statistically rather on the level, it was becoming very difficult to keep up, although we did keep up, and we did try to make sure that it retained the same rigor as it always had. And yes, it made us all better players. However, I do feel the need to apologize to any and all of our clan members who previously were attributing their own self-worth to chili testing. I'm sorry to hear that some of us took it pretty far, and for some, chili testing became a reflection of how much they were valued as a part not just of the team, but on a personal level. And so it wasn't the intention of chili testing to feel that way. We didn't want it to feel like it was something that you needed to train, grind, and study for. We wanted it to be truly reflective of skill level, but I hadn't fully realized, I suppose, how many people were in the lobbies day after day, not really enjoying the game, not really having fun playing any of the FPS games, but they were trying to grind out positive KDs so that they could have a spectacular gauntlet so that they could say, I am a knight of CITM. We didn't really want people to stress out over who ended up where, but people did anyway. It was meant to be a barometer with a fun clan mythos attached, and I suppose that's more or less what I'm apologizing for. The expectation was supposed to be attainable, and for some it was unattainable. It was attainable for people who had more time or they were more naturally gifted, and it was rather unattainable for people who were struggling to make, KD 1.0s or whatever. And so they started to feel like, well, maybe the clan just doesn't value me as much. And that's unacceptable. That unfair feeling should never exist. But I digress. Our group naturally started splintering off because of reasons that I discussed earlier. Players began to game more exclusively with their close friends and form subgroups that may have popped in from time to time to play with the main group, but generally speaking, people, if you could even call it a core group anymore at that point, started to splinter off. Several of our players put gaming on the back burner, and some of them never came back because that's just the way that it goes sometimes. And that's respectable. Be responsible. Don't let your life, get destroyed by gaming. It felt like there was very little reason to continue on with testing at that point. We knew that we could get 4 or 5 players on to do CITM testing for a season, and only maybe 1 or 2 of which were doing testing just because they felt like they had to, or they tried to set aside the time. But at the end of the day, regular players were probably 2 or 3 maximum, at least from what I observed at the time. Like I said, from my perspective, which maybe was not the norm, but it was the norm from where I was standing. Those subdivisions more or less persisted indefinitely because there was also a sort of clumsy and idiotic PC versus console war that was going on behind the scenes, and I absolutely refuse to get into that kind of dogmatic nonsense. We're all intelligent enough to know where the pros and cons land in each one of these places, and more or less, in my opinion, it felt a lot like the mainstay of why people chose to move to one side or the other was because they wanted to play with their friends. Whether or not people will admit it, or whether or not people, want to admit it, or they're not willing to, at the end of the day, the experiences that were made, whether they were on console or otherwise, were why we were there. We can't say we didn't enjoy the time we played on console, because we did. At least I did. Some folks got to the point where they just simply enjoyed playing more on PC. Others preferred console, and still others preferred not to game at all. And more or less, at the end of the day, I would say everyone was happy with where they were. It was, after all, what they had chosen. Now, to be fair, some players kept bridging the gap between console and PC, whether it was through a growing cross-platform modality across certain games, for example, Sea of Thieves. Their homes had changed socially, technologically, and sometimes both, however. Personally, I was console until 2020. So I was console for a very long time. Then, just at the crux of COVID-19 pandemic, my office laptop died. And so I was already in the process of trying to figure out how I could get a PC. And I figured it should be a strong enough PC because I wanted to go back to the days of when I was playing Hades and Binding of Isaac. And I was playing actually early access Hades and Darkest Dungeon and these other PC games that were not on console. But the truth is that I had a long stint playing Monster Hunter World on console where I pretty much no-lifed the game for a long time until the PC actually showed up. And it was kitted out, it was capable, and still is capable of running a lot of games that I play today. Now, some people may argue that console gaming is strictly better, and like I said, I think it's always been about the memories. I think it's always been about who's there, and whether we like to admit it or not, the main reason why I do this is because I missed my friends. I missed the team. You know, it wasn't like it happened overnight. It wasn't like it was a situation where, you know, we had players who just up and flipped a switch and all of a sudden we're strictly PC. No, it's because maybe 2 or 3 players wanted to play League of Legends, you know, or maybe they wanted to play a roguelike over PC, or maybe they just were curious about what it was like to play a shooter on PC or what have you. The memories we had on console were real, and they were some of the most fun, and people always look back on them fondly. But perhaps it was those subgroups who had pre-existing propensity towards PC, and they were waiting for us to follow. Again, you know, I don't agree that it's strictly better. But fast forward to late 2020, and I was trying to learn how to play, and I had a keyboard, mouse, and I was changing my sensitivities, and I was updating all my specs or what have you. And I set up a Discord that was originally intended for Dungeons and Dragons campaigners. And it blossomed into this crazy nostalgia trip of seeing 8 to 10 players online. What are they doing? They're playing different things, memeing in the chat, becoming part of my gallery. And the irony is that my time gaming between those years before that, 2017 to 2018 and forward, were not lackluster at all. I enjoyed the time playing with, you know, the few players that I had, and I don't have any sort of, you know, sadness in my heart for those times, nor do I think they were a waste. But these days, you can jump into my Discord and get that feeling of back in the day, of when people were online, and you could join them for whatever game you want to play, and, you know, enjoy a good evening on any day of the week. We play Magic, we talk anime, you know, I guess we catch Pokemon. We have a bot for that, and we record videos of Binding of Isaac. That's what we do. So, do I think CITM is dead? No, I don't think it is. I think that it's different. I think that it's changed. I think that there will always be some amount of tension looking back on the way that we handled testing, or the way that we handled the ranking ladder, or the way that we handled people moving from console to console or PC with a little bit of tension. And I'm very happy to say that none of that should matter anymore. It doesn't matter. If this pandemic has taught us anything, it should be that we should be cherishing the amount of time that we have with each other, rather than what game are you playing and why, or how good are you at the game that you're playing, or whether or not this is considered a waste of time. You know, I wish I could go back. I wish I could go back and remind everyone about that. You know, remind myself even that the most important part of the clan was always the people who are in it. That, you know, well, it was all of us. It was all of you. You know? But I like to think that we all knew that somehow. You know, and that we look back on those memories really fondly. You know, at least I hope that we do. You know, at the end of the day, as cheesy and as corny as it sounds, you know, I'm still rocking the CITM clan tag. I mean, because at the end of the day, screw it. This has been Eric Percival, or Scuffed Gaming for YouTube. The Knight of 32, the damn Scuffed gamer of all things. signing off, and I hope I'll see all of you on the battlefield. And have a great day. Goodbye.